You're watching Behind the Screens. Grab some popcorn, fill up a drink, and take a seat. Our feature presentation is about to begin. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you may be listening. Welcome to another brand new episode of Behind the Screens. I'm Chris Chason, and joined as always is my co-host and best friend, Mike Lickowed. Mike, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing very well today, Chris, and I'm so happy to be here again, once again, for all you viewers listening out there, for episode 5 of Behind the Screens.
Oh yeah, we've got a doozy today. And, of course, we decided to go back to, what is it again? What do they nickname it again? The Gothic capital of the world?
Yeah, perhaps, about this guy who dresses like an owl, I think.
No. You're thinking of another universe. You're thinking, no, a bat.
Batman. That's right. We still have more episodes of Batman the Animated Series to talk to you about, folks. Little by little, we'll be getting through this series with you, and I know you're just as excited as we are for another great installment.
Oh, yeah. And this next batch of episodes, some of my favorites are on there, but there are a couple oddballs here and there, but hey, any cartoon has that one.
Basically, yes. We will have fluctuating reception for these next 13 episodes here. Some we will go very much in depth on because we enjoy them so much. Others will only share our most briefest of opinions for you guys at home today.
So, shall we get started?
Indeed. We'll have to begin with the second to last episode of the first season of Batman the Animated Series, episode 27, Mad as a Hatter, written by the ever-amazing Paul Dini, although I'm not sure if I would clarify this as one of his better works, but of course we will get into all of that once we're through the plot synopsis. Miserable Wayne Enterprises scientist Jervis Tetch is unable to pursue the girl he loves, Alice the secretary. I love how it just says Alice the secretary. It doesn't even give her a last name.
No,
she's just the secretary.
That's the weird part.
When she splits off from her boyfriend, he makes an advance and develops a fast friendship with her, until her boyfriend reconciles with her and proposes to her almost out of the blue, Enraged, Tetch decides to take matters into his own hands and dons the mantle of the villain the Mad Hatter, using his mind control devices to force those who have wronged him all his life to become his mindless slaves.
Well, so I'll have to make this. I never thought an Alice in Wonderland fanatic and turning into an Alice in Wonderland character would turn into a Batman villain.
I know, right? Basically the fact of the matter is, I once, the very first time I ever heard of the Mad Hatter was through Adam West's 1966 series. I believe he only appeared once, maybe
last
twice.
I checked, only once.
Yeah, he had a very silly ginger mustache. He had very, a gray suit with, eyes poking out of the hat.
Yeah.
It was really silly. Even for my little kid brain, I could tell this guy was not a big, heavy hitter. But you know what? Paul Dini does have this way of hamming up supposedly loser villains into something that could positively be extraordinary later on to varying degrees. The same way that he did with Mr. Freeze, and of course creating Harley Quinn, as we saw in past installments. But now we get to see his take on creating Mr. Jervis Tetch.
Yeah, and I gotta admit, the Mad Hatter is an interesting Batman villain. All he wants is his own Alice, and basically he's delusional enough to think that he actually is the Mad Hatter and pretty much ditch the Jervis Tetch identity in general.
Exactly. Jervis Tetch as a character, all things considered, has been very varied over the years. You do like his crazy shenanigans, but he's kind of a squicky bad guy. The fact that
and I remember one incarnation, the dude was just an absolute sleazeball.
I know. The fact of the matter is he's driven by a sexual repressed desire for his very own perfect partner. Blonde hair, blue eyes, short stature, very articulative, perfect. It just so happens that in this show, when he's first introduced, he goes after a girl named Alice, who seems to fit his delusional desires. But of course, as we've seen in other installments with the character, there is more than one Alice. One Alice after another, he does away with them all when they don't suit his perfect fantasy.
Yeah, and it's kind of creepy. But I'll give it this. Other incarnations of the Mad Hatter were really loony and crazy. This one, he retains his brain because this version was a scientist that worked for Wayne Enterprises.
Exactly.
So he has his genius and used special hypnotic cards to hypnotize people to become his henchmen.
With probably the worst middle manager ever, all things considered. You know, when his boss always came barging in and demanding his, stuff be done. It's like, I don't know. Bruce Wayne is a very caring and loving CEO. Probably one of the only good examples of a nice billionaire.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, he needs to hire nicer people. That's the fact of the matter.
I know. Because, look, as far as I know, the only nice Wayne Enterprise people, as far as I remember, are himself and Lucius Fox.
Exactly.
The rest are either just okay or jerks.
It really just goes to show that Bruce Wayne is probably the only sane person in a crazy world.
That's saying something because he dresses like a bat every night.
Exactly. But of course, I will say it does seem kind of convoluted that Alice's boyfriend would dump her and then, go into marrying her. But then of course, I've seen guys do that before. They don't think that they're ready for commitment, so they run away, take some time to think, and then when they've had their time to think, they go back, double down, and then usually everything works out.
Yeah, but 9 times out of 10, it works. The 10th time, it doesn't.
It doesn't. And this time had the craziest outcome ever. After it's revealed that Alice will never be his, Jervis snaps, goes after everybody. This is actually what happens when you don't get people the psychological help that they actually need. They end up building or taking over giant Alice in Wonderland theme parks in the middle of your city for some reason.
And one scene in particular that really shows that Jervis has really lost it is when he finds out that Alice is back with her fiance. He gets mad and he squishes the bouquet of roses in his hand. You can see him bleeding, thinking,
oh yeah,
yep, there goes his sanity.
Exactly. Like, the fact of the matter is, the pain that the roses are bringing to him is nothing compared to the emotional rejection he's had to deal with over and over and over again.
Yeah, trust me, emotional pain is way worse than physical pain when it's the right circumstance.
The ending of this episode is honestly so much sad when Alice is revealed out of her stupor and she sees the kind of man that Jervis actually is. It really is sad because she honestly loved him as a friend, but he just couldn't accept that.
This is like if someone was friend-zoned and took a dark path.
Exactly. Like, it's almost like that. Like, some dudes out there today. This was back. This episode was made back in the mid to late. The mid to early 90s.
Yeah.
But today, the equivalent of this would be getting a really popular internet girlfriend. But then, you find out that, oh no, she didn't like you that way. Just something was lost in translation.
Right, exactly.
And then you do everything in your power to hack her accounts, defame her name, spread rumors, and then possible kidnapping.
That happened to you?
No. I'm just saying that this is the world we live in now, my friend.
Fair enough.
Back then, people just, hid their anger in silence. But today, it's a lot more complicated. But of course, obviously, we had a lot of fun with this episode.
Yeah, I will admit, I'm a Disney nut, and I knew the Disney version of Alice in Wonderland. And seeing this episode, I'm thinking to myself, good lord, if the Disney execs saw this, they would be horrified.
Exactly, my goodness. What are your final thoughts on it?
Honestly, it's a solid way to introduce the Mad Hatter. Not great, but not horrible. I feel like if Paul Dini didn't write it this way and wrote it a different way, the episode would probably end be not as great.
Yeah, honestly. So it could have gone a lot worse, but you're glad it turned out the way it did.
Yeah, I honestly think it's an alright episode, and if I had to rate it, at best I have to give it on the solid an 8 out of 10.
I myself, thought that this was a very worthwhile introduction to the character of Jervis Tetch. It basically got all of his iconic and memorable characteristics down. His insane delusions, his incredible mind, his very much deranged personality, and of course the elaborately fantastical ways he goes about fighting Batman, which are always fun to watch. So basically, I'd have to give his introductory episode, Mad as a Hatter, a letter B ranking.
All right, you haven't used the solid B in a while, so that's a start.
Yeah, I definitely felt that it was about time, my friends. But after so many episodes of Behind the Screen so far, we are finally done with the first season of Batman the Animated Series because we are about to talk about the Season 1 finale, Dreams in Darkness.
This episode is interesting.
Indeed. Batman is incarcerated in Arkham Asylum after being exposed to the Joker's fear-inducing gas. Batman knows that the Scarecrow has escaped for the second time and is planning to poison Gotham's water supply with the same fear-inducing gas, and he must bring himself to break the law and escape from Arkham before the Scarecrow brings Gotham to its knees.
Wait, hang on. Fear toxin in the water supply? Where have I heard that before?
Batman Begins.
Oh, that's right! I guess that episode must have inspired the movie.
It did, actually. Basically, they thought, hey, this seems like a really great idea, and if we have to use the character of Jonathan Crane, we might as well use one of his best stories that kids would remember.
Yeah, but without the Batman Begins mentality, this episode is interesting, to be fair. In terms of Scarecrow-centered episodes, it's not the best, but it's a little better than his first appearance. The second one, not so much.
Yeah,
but it's all right, but it could have been a lot better.
You think so?
Yeah, the way it's written, Batman exposed to the toxin. That's normal.
Yeah.
But this time it was a little different.
Exactly, it was.
It's not like it didn't go into Bruce's character, but it went more like to
inside his mind. Basically, we got to see the everlasting effects of just how dangerous Dr. Crane is with all these chemicals. You saw the warping realities that he experienced while on these drugs. So much though that it nearly killed him. The fact of the matter is he was thrust into a world of madness so crazy that it almost cost him everything he loved had he been a second too late.
Yeah, and honestly, being exposed to this kind of madness and going through it requires the strongest of wills, if you ask me.
Exactly. Many of you new viewers at home who are very new to comic book stories may think that, oh wow, gas causing hallucinations is probably nothing short of average when it comes to superhero or overall story plots. Jonathan Crane's gas is something all things considered. This man brings out the worst of the human mind, something that no person would ever dare go to talk about ever. He makes you confront what would stop you in your tracks almost instantly, but he never considered the will of Mr. Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, at best, Scarecrow's gas could expose you to your fear like spiders crawling over your skin. But at worst, long doses can endure long amounts of psychological trauma, and you need therapeutic help.
My friend, absolutely yes. The fact of the matter is that this episode is mostly told through flashback while Batman's locked away in Arkham Asylum because of course he just happens to crash right outside the asylum. The doctors immediately just throw him in a cell for some reason.
It's kind of like a Quentin Tarantino movie almost. Like they show you the ending first, and then they see how we got there.
Exactly. I should also mention that this is one of the very few times where the Joker's real name is actually used. They actually call him Jack Napier, which was totally Tim Burton's Batman movie idea.
Yeah, it's interesting, but it's really weird. Especially considering most longtime comic fans know the Joker, we don't really know his real identity.
Exactly. I suppose it could come from the fact that the people that wrote this episode were a husband and wife duo that constantly wrote episodes for this series. They probably saw the movie years ago, liked the name Jack Napier, and decided to go with it, and nobody at Fox or DC told them otherwise.
Yeah, so I guess free pass?
Exactly. Basically, the fact of the matter is it showed that even in the most dire of situations, this revealed a couple things. It showed that Batman would never give up, no matter how dangerous or damning the situation was. He would fight for Gotham on his very last breath, even when all odds were stacked against him. But it also shows that he really almost has no friends in Gotham besides Commissioner Gordon, possibly Bullock and Renee Montoya. The doctors at Arkham Asylum are happy that he brings the criminals here, but they also see him as a force of negative energy. Because like the fact
Which makes me question, you think the doctors at Arkham are kind of hypocrites when you think about it?
I mean, mind you and I saw the same institution on the animated series. Does that place look like a healthy institution to you?
No!
No, exactly not right. This place is basically a revolving door for the criminally insane, doing the bare minimum to try and heal these people.
Some healing.
And basically, they see that Batman isn't doing any good, that he's only making the problem worse. He may be, but you know what? He's the only thing keeping people from releasing dangerous chemicals into an entire city's water supply. Nobody else in this entire city, perhaps maybe one or two, could do that. So you know what? Even if you have your negative reservations, you can't deny that he is a necessary part of this city.
Yeah, because tenacity, it's one of Batman's greatest traits.
Exactly, and it's one of the things that I admire most about him. But then, of course, we have to talk about the conflict at the end of the episode, when Batman single-handedly fights off Scarecrow and his goons on the massive device that's going to be pumping the water with all those chemicals. It's a good finale fight.
He's still induced by the toxins at that point, right?
Correct.
So yeah, he's still exposed to that. So it's nuts to think about, but
exactly.
It's honestly still a good fight and a good bookend to the episode. Again, could be better, but still, it was solid enough.
Exactly. I should also mention that this episode was actually based off the first storyline of Batman Shadow of the Bat, numbers 1 through 4. The episode does take some civil liberties, of course, with certain characters. The villain of that first story was, of course, Victor Zsasz. If I'm not, I could also be wrong, but it could also have been his. Yes, it was. The first story of Shadow of the Bat was actually the introduction of Victor Zsasz.
Yeah, that guy is nuts.
Yeah, don't worry, folks. We'll be talking about him at some point in the future, but we're not sure where. But of course, all things considered, a very solid story with really amazing storytelling, amazing acting by Mr. Kevin Conroy and the rest of the cast, and an excellent way to bookend the first season.
Absolutely. So how would you rate this episode?
Personally, I think that one of the many great aspects of Batman the Animated Series is its ability for variety of storytelling. Batman could be sitting in a dark room, rolled up in a straitjacket with all of his options removed, but he'll never stop fighting. The base of the fact of the matter is he will fight for justice until the very end. And this episode showed that even when a villain has a 99% chance at winning, there's always that 1% that they will never account for. The percentage of heroism. And of course, conquering your fears and all that.
Of course, but come on, who really cares about that?
Sometimes. We'll get to that. I'd have to give episode 28 of Batman the Animated Series, the season 1 finale, Dreams in Darkness, a B+ letter ranking.
A B+, not bad.
Indeed.
I still have to admit, this is a solid episode. Not my favorite, but conquering your fears and showing Batman's tenacity is is really the main highlight of this episode. The way it was written was also good too. Like I said, like a Tarantino movie, shows you the end first, and then we see how we got there. And like you said, with Batman, has that 1% of fighting back. And even when it looks like Scarecrow's about to win, Batman finds a way to fight back and win, even on a fear-induced drug trip. Exactly. He knows how to do it.
And so emphasis on trip.
Yeah. So at best, I have to give this episode around also an 8 out of 10.
Wonderful. Okay, so now without further ado, my friends, we're finally getting into the second of 4 seasons of this series. Don't worry, my friends. We will get to the halfway point in a number of weeks. So simply bear with us. But of course, we'll be starting the second season off on a very low bar episode, but of course, nonetheless, a decently entertaining one. Episode 29, Eternal Youth.
Oh boy.
So, several rich industrialists are invited to the Eternal Youth Health Spa, and that's where they are last seen before disappearing. The only connection, they had something to do with the deaths of plants. Bruce Wayne has also received an invitation, although it was one of his greedy directors who nearly made the deal to destroy an entire rainforest before Bruce forced him to shut the operation down. So basically, the invitation was an error that was quickly reversed, but then they didn't rectify the mistake, which caused all these shenanigans.
Yep.
But moving on, Alfred and his lady friend, Maggie, go to the place instead of Bruce. When they do not return, Batman is forced to investigate, discovering that the spa is run by Poison Ivy, and that she has been using a formula to turn the industrialists into humanoid trees, including Alfred and Maggie. And of course, Batman must save them before it's too late.
Yeah, so the minute you hear plants and death, it gives you a hint on who's behind the whole thing.
Yeah, basically, this episode is not very subtle at all.
It's I mean, to be fair though, it is a kids' cartoon, so you gotta remember it's not. You don't want to go that far over the kids' heads and make them think.
Exactly.
But at the same time, it could have been a lot better.
Indeed, but like, you know what? Right out of the gate, like, I mean, it does try to be ambitious with like that scene of the rich lady trying to like run from the grounds while of course Ivy hunts her down with poison arrows poison tip, whatever she throws.
Yeah.
You know, basically, it's like, okay, so this is kind of building up to something, but then the reveal is kind of made. But then of course we go back to the mansion. We see another sign of Bruce Wayne's compassion. Somebody working for him is trying to cut down a whole rainforest. He immediately says no, and no, I really just have to like that. Because the fact of the matter is, like, even though Bruce Wayne is a leading industrialist in the world of machines, technology, and world peace and all that, he will not destroy the world to save it. Like, I really do admire that about him.
Because I remember this one cartoon where there was this group of natural environment fighters, and the main guy said, "You must be willing to kill the environment to save it." And I'm thinking to myself, no, that is not right at all.
That is the most backwards ass thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I know.
Goodness.
But I mean, it makes the most sense that Ivy is the main villain of this episode, considering the motive.
Yeah.
But again, it was too obvious.
It was way too obvious. But like, you know what was also obvious? That spa looks too fun to say no to.
I know.
They got all the massage tables and like the little spa things with like the little sprays on it, and the pools and the sports, and of course the very attractive Greek dressed models who they got to talk in the informational VHS tape. You know, I've just gotta say, I don't even care what was happening at that place. I would have gone just for them alone. But then of course, Bruce actually lets Alfred go because he's starting to be a little stingy old man. He needs to have fun every once in a while. And he has a really nice lady friend named Maggie in this episode. She is a delight. Let me tell you that, because she's basically I'm trying to think about how to properly say this. She's basically what like keeps Alfred young, aside from helping Batman. And of course he goes there, and then he initially comes back a much more cool and calm person. He feels 20 years younger again. He's like, "Oh yes, sir, I am feeling much more alive and well kept than ever before." It's like, what happened to him out there? Oh my goodness.
Sorry, I was out for a bit, but thinking about the miles. You said miles, and then just started.
Oh, you like that too, huh?
Like, huh? But yeah, Alfred remaining young, something's off. But,
exactly.
Like, you know how I fix this episode?
How?
Do not mention the plants at all.
Exactly.
Like, but like, have Ivy still be revealed, but have Alfred act as young, like be the first hint that something isn't right, and then eventually find out that it's Ivy.
Well, one thing could be said though, it could act as a front of Ivy, turning over a new leaf, because the fact of the matter is, like, it says, oh wow, so she had a stint in prison last season, and then she got better, she invested a lot, and then she wanted to open up a spa for the rich patrons that she tried to kill. It's like, but then of course, like, don't tell anything about that. I'm just like spitballing here. And then Alfred and Maggie go back, of course, but then, as I mentioned, they don't return. Bruce is very worried and suspicious. He goes there himself as Batman, and the humanoid tree scene is pretty gruesome.
Tell me about it.
Not gonna lie, like, when you see Alfred and Maggie's droopy, like, wood faces, like, looking back at you with stuff leaking out of them.
Again, keep in mind, this is a kid's cartoon, people.
This is an absolute mess, and it really just, actually, I think that even though You're right. This episode was not as good as Poison Ivy's previous showing in the first season. It really shows just how deep her psychosis and her mental instability goes. The fact that she is willing to turn everybody on the planet, or at least the rich people, into these plants shows really just how much she hates those on top, and how much it shows, if you don't care about the environment so much, I'm going to show you what it was like for them when you killed them in front of my eyes.
Honestly,
it's really dark.
Honestly, in this episode, Ivy was the human version of hashtag tax the rich, if I'm being honest.
It really was. The fact of the matter is, woman, there's so many better ways to get back at the rich of the United States. Just start a petition. You don't need to.
And as far as we know, if petitions reach a certain amount, they have to respond to it.
You don't need to turn people into plants.
Yeah, that's going the honestly indirect route, if I'm being honest, because that's not how you do it.
Yeah, but of course, then again, Poison Ivy has always had an interesting relationship with Batman and comic book readers in general. She always seems to be whatever the writer wants her to be. She didn't really have an established character until at least a decade and a half or so.
Yeah, pretty much.
But then of course, you guys know the drill. Batman defeats Poison Ivy, saves the day. Alfred and Maggie are taken to the hospital, and then of course there's a funny moment about going back to the spa, and of course Alfred is not having it.
Forget about it.
I mean, this is also the only time Maggie appears too.
Yeah.
It's such a shame because I would have liked to see much more of her. Because let me tell you, Leslie Tompkins is nice. Bruce needs more motherly figures in his life.
I know.
He has way too many father figures.
Yeah.
And not enough mother figures.
I know. And Maggie was good. Although it would be kind of weird if she did stick around and find out that Bruce was Batman. She'd be like, Alfred, what are you keeping from me?
Yo, that would have actually been really cool, honestly, because I know that Leslie knows that he's Batman, and so does Alfred.
Yep.
Lucius, not so much.
No.
But one thing that I do think that should have happened going on in this series is that he should have revealed his identity to more people, aside from the superhero personas and whatnot.
Of course, yeah.
But of course, now that we've talked a lot about Eternal Youth and tried to make this episode seem exciting for you guys, to our very best of our ability, how would you rate this episode, Chris?
If I'm being honest, not a good start to the second season. If I'm being honest, I mean, it's not horrible. It could have been written way better, but as it is, it's at best okay.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, I'm glad Poison Ivy is the main threat again, but again, it's just average. If I'm being honest, again, not the worst thing I've seen, but could have been way better.
Exactly.
So at best, I have to rate it maybe like a 7.
A 7? Damn, man. Folks, it's actually a very rare occasion when I like something more than he likes something.
What?
So basically, the thing about this episode is, it's very not subtle at all. There's no surprises whatsoever, but the fun and energetic, wacky superhero situations are definitely enough to keep me engaged, and, I like to see Batman fighting Poison Ivy.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Because, I'm basically one of the only minds that prefers her as a villain instead of an anti-hero, of course, many people do today.
Yeah.
But of course, it's got great comedy, horrific imagery, which I always like in kids' cartoons. Basically, a really decent end fight, decent plot, but of course, Poison Ivy's first episode was better. So I'd have to give the season 2 premiere of Batman the Animated Series, Eternal Youth, a letter C plus ranking.
C plus, really?
Yes, I'd have to give this episode a C plus.
All right then.
So now, without further ado, let's get into episode 30 of Batman the Animated Series, possibly one of the most beloved episodes of all, Perchance to Dream.
Oh, this episode is amazing!
Bruce Wayne wakes up one morning to find that his life is completely upside down. His parents are once again alive, the Batcave is gone, Alfred does not know who Robin is, and he's engaged to Selina frickin' Kyle. However, it doesn't mean that Batman isn't still around, and Bruce starts to wonder what has happened, especially after seeing the characteristics of a dream, such as books and newspapers not making sense inside of his new life. As he starts to question his new reality, will he ever want to go back to how things were if he does find the solution?
Yeah, this episode wants to basically mess with you.
It's basically Inception before Inception.
Really?
Yeah, no, basically the fact of the matter is, it's basically both a combination of the future things that would later inspire not only Inception, but The Matrix as well. You wake up not knowing that everything is not as it should be, but it feels so good and so right. You don't want it to end, even though it's so wrong.
Makes sense. And considering the fact that this is a reality where Bruce's parents are alive, I'm thinking to myself, what just happened?
I know, because basically the fact of the matter is, like, we're so used to them being gone, we never once thought of what Bruce's life would be like had tragedy not filled his mind with misery and woe.
There was one alternate reality where his parents were alive, but Bruce was dead, and that was Flashpoint, and that's
a story for another day.
Yeah, but this is different because Bruce is alive, his parents are alive,
everything is good,
and he's engaged to Catwoman,
which you know what?
I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Catwoman's like the perfect woman for Batman. Talia al Ghul's like a close second.
Close second, but Selina Kyle is his perfect ultimate match. You know, the fact of the matter is, she's strong, capable, intelligent, feisty. Like, you know, she's everything.
Not to mention, she's fine.
Yeah, she's fine with them green eyes and that blonde hair.
For more as brunette.
Blonde side of the room, black hair side of the room. No, folks, I'm just joking. But then again, this entire episode is made with Bruce constantly questioning what's going on. The fact of the matter is, he feels like his life should be different, but he doesn't know how. He keeps thinking of Batman and caves and Dick Grayson. Basically, like, everything is so different because of one simple thing changing, and it's remarkable, honestly.
Yeah.
Just how much it is to see him happy, because that's
weird.
Because that's the thing. That's the fact of the matter is, Bruce Wayne is usually so stoic and serious. And
I mean, to be fair though, even though he is stoic and serious with the Batman stuff, he can be happy and he can smile. He's not a stoic plank of wood.
No, but then of course, it was so weird to think about just how far this episode could have gone had the reality of things not set in. The fact that, like, somebody else took up the mantle of Batman. You think that should have been Dick Grayson?
Honestly, yes.
Yes. That would have been absolutely nuts.
Yeah,
to basically just see, like, Dick holding up, like, a voice synthesizer to make his voice sound much more growlier.
Yeah.
Basically, like, Dick? Is that you?
That's something.
How do you know who I am?
But what's crazy for me is, like, now that I think about it, this episode of this alternate reality, like Batman having a near perfect life, it kind of inspired the modern run for Batman comics nowadays, because a recent arc in the comics was Batman trying to perfect Gotham City and make it better so no crime would happen, because a lot of crazy stuff went down in the city during that run, like, it getting cut off from the United States, Joker taking over and taking all of Batman's money, and now possibly Scarecrow turning it into a fear state, but that's a whole other thing.
A whole another thing.
Yeah,
Let's basically just say everything goes right for Bruce Wayne until, he starts to, as we mentioned in the recap, notice some discrepancies. He can't read any of the books and newspapers, or basically his memories, his real memories are contrasting with whatever this alternate reality is.
Right, exactly. Like, the book and newspaper thing, it gives you a subtle hint that something isn't right.
Exactly.
Besides Bruce's parents being the obvious thing.
I know, but then of course, to everybody else, he looks like he's going insane. They might have him institutionalized at Arkham.
Yeah.
Basically, the fact of the matter is, he becomes convinced that this is a dream. And it is. So he has to do everything possible to wake himself up, to get himself back to the real world. And the only way to do that is to find Batman. And of course, what does he do? He goes to a freaking clock tower, rings the bell, I believe, and Batman eventually comes as a monster rainstorm starts to engulf the city. You can see that Bruce's emotions warps the world around him. The happier he is, the sunnier it got. The more distressed and in pain he got, the harder the rain was falling. And basically, it was such a weird experience, not gonna lie, just seeing him having a fight for his own survival inside what was essentially the perfect reality for him. But he knows deep down that as good as he feels in the moment, as he knows that this is how things should have been, it's not.
Right. Exactly.
And of course, when he finally removes the veil from what's going on, it's the Mad Hatter.
Of course. 2 episodes later, and this is how he plans revenge.
Exactly. This is the ultimate revenge, showing Bruce the life he always wanted and keeping him here for all eternity. Knowing, of course, that if he were to ever escape, he would be twice as miserable as he already was. And of course, Hatter tells him that there's no way out without doing something extremely drastic. This is your perfect world. Just accept it. Stay here. You're welcome. And then, of course, Bruce realizes that if he can't live in the real world, he'd rather not live at all. And of course, what he does, he takes the plunge off of the clock tower in a desperate attempt to wake himself up, and thank goodness it works.
Yes.
And of course, when he wakes up from the Mad Hatter's machine, he is enraged at how he could have done this to him, like holding up Jervis by his neckline about how the Mad Hatter is both baffled that he was able to break the spell, but also the fact that he was trying to help him. And of course,
some help.
The look of anger and resentment on Batman's face is something I will never be able to live down.
I know, like the fact that Jervis created a perfect reality for Batman, and now the fact that it never is going to happen. Batman gets twice as ticked as he holds Jervis. I thought if this wasn't a kid's cartoon, I would have thought Batman would have clenched Jervis's neck tighter and make him choke almost to death.
Yeah, I know. He'd be like spouting all stuff like, "Do you know what you've done to me?" And it is because that's the fact that matters. He will never know because the Mad Hatter couldn't see what was going on in there. He has no idea the kind of pain and torture it was for him to see his most precious loved ones alive and breathing again. But unfortunately, it was not meant to be.
Absolutely.
Episodes like this really go to show just how tortured of a soul Bruce Wayne is, about how he so desperately wants to live a normal life. He knows this is not something he wanted to do. It's something the world has made him do.
Yeah.
And it's so gosh darn sad, but it makes for such great, entertaining television.
Absolutely.
So how would you rank this episode, Perchance to Dream?
If I'm being honest, like, this is one of my favorite episodes of the show because the main focus is the psyche of Batman. Considering the fact that he got exposed to a reality where everything is perfect. His parents are alive. He's engaged to the perfect woman. But he's not Batman. That's one of the driving forces of Bruce Wayne. If he's not Batman, he's just nothing.
Yeah, well,
like, I mean, sure, he's a billionaire, playboy, genius, philanthropist, but even still, you can't really have Bruce Wayne without having Batman.
So true.
So, at best, like, this episode really is another one that speaks on Bruce's character. Like, he could have had the perfect life had his parents not got shot. But it had to happen in order for the real reality to set in. And reality can hurt, but that's how it is. That's the main discrepancy between fantasy and reality. You have to accept reality no matter how awful it is.
Indeed.
So, at best, I have to give this episode a high 9 out of 10.
Fan-fricking-tastic, my friend. You know, every single time I go back to rewatch this episode, it always amazes me just how much Bruce Wayne's life was taken from him, how much pain he's always in constantly. And this story is the exact reverse of that, about how those he cherished most in this world had their lives cut short when he was barely able to know them. One thing that I'm always able to think about this episode is how the fact that Bruce's mind and memories mold the world around him. We don't learn a lot about the world because Bruce barely knew his parents. He knew that they went golfing. He knew that they liked the opera, but that's basically it. He knew next to nothing about them. And of course, this reality just shows that as much as he wanted them back, he's never going to. No. And it's so gosh darn tragic just how much he has to endure every single day. And it really goes to show that afterwards, his fight for Batman, his fight for making the world that his parents would have wanted, to fulfill their dream, if they can't be here, if he can't be here with them, he will make a world that they would have wanted.
Do you think every day it just eats up his soul no matter what?
I'm pretty sure as we go through the rest of these shows that aired over 25, 30 years ago, that question will be answered for us as we see what exactly happens to Kevin Conroy's Batman in the future. But of course, I definitely say Perchance to Dream is one of the best episodes of Batman the Animated Series, simply for its thematic purpose and overall presentation of its story. So I'd have to give it a very solid letter A ranking.
Oh yeah!
Okay, and now without further ado, since we babbled on about dreams and warping fantasies, let's go back to something a bit more grounded with episode 31 of Batman the Animated Series, The Cape and Cowl Conspiracy.
Oh boy.
Baron, I have no idea how to say this dude's name.
I'm a good reader, so Jozek.
Baron Jozak, furious at Batman for humiliating him at a dinner party over his underworld connections, naturally.
Yep.
He hires a guy named Josiah Wormwood, a master in setting traps for his victims, to hunt down Batman and bring back the hero's cape and cowl to get revenge. That's basically the whole plot. Some guy hires a guy who makes really elaborate booby traps, basically the PG version of Saw, to get Batman.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it out front. This episode was stupid.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure I can understand why. This episode was based off of a comic issue.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, based off the comic story The Cape and Cowl Death Trap from Detective Comics number 450 from 1975. Actually written by the guy who wrote the comic over 15, 20 years before.
So the same guy who wrote the comic wrote the episode?
Yes.
Interesting.
Which is actually cool, I think.
I mean, and to be fair though, in theory, it sounds cool, but like in execution, it was just... Honestly, again, this episode was kind of stupid, but to be fair though, it wasn't horrible, but
no,
it could have been way better.
I know, for like, hiring a dude who makes elaborate death traps, you'd think that this guy would be able to make something more creative, but it's like basically just slapping a bunch of different traps together, runaway trains, dangerous animals, flooding floors, women on frickin' railroad tracks.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I can think of like two other Batman villains that can make a better elaborate traps than this dude.
The Riddler?
Well, that's one.
And who's the other?
If I'm being honest, the Penguin.
Yeah.
He has connections. He could do it.
Yeah, I suppose so. I will say that the episode is very much convoluted in its presentation. It's like not the most deep story. It's basically Batman being constantly tested and annoyed by this guy who thinks he's better than everybody else. But you know what? I will say the trap that he has in the opening minutes is honestly pretty cool. Basically it shows that this guy, when he's setting traps for ordinary citizens, he's very, very good. But Batman is a detective. It's his job to be intelligent. It's his job to solve puzzles. And this guy's puzzles were like at a 12th grade level, while Batman is a freshman in college. He's one level above this guy each and every time. And it's honestly pretty funny. I mean, I will say that, this episode was pretty forgettable, honestly.
Yeah, when I remember discussing with some fans about the show, none of them ever mentioned this one.
None of them ever talk about it, because even though it's fun in the moment, it's like good to snack on the gummy bears and the popcorn, and then you just move on to the next one. Yeah. Honestly, so basically, I know that we usually go really in depth, but as we said, ladies and gentlemen, if we talk for a long time, it means we really like it. If we don't, then we just don't. So basically. Final thing I'll say before we give our final thoughts. The episode is a fun romp with some somewhat creative villain trap designs, but otherwise it's basically a story about Batman fighting another simple bad guy, coming out on top in a very decently heroic way.
Yeah, I mean, the traps are creative, I guess, but overall, just...
Yeah, it probably, if I was to see it again in the next year or so, I would probably still like it, but for the life of me, I can't go in depth on what happens.
I know. How would you rate it, though?
I would say that it was a very valiant effort, honestly, to not only get the same guy who wrote the Detective comic issue to actually put his story to screen. I'm really glad he got the chance. I'm just, sorry for the guy that he couldn't come up with a better story.
Yeah.
You know what, maybe for 1975, this would have been really big news, Batman's cowl being taken.
Yeah.
But this was in the mid-90s. We needed much more exciting stories than this, and this one was just average. So
Yeah.
I would have to give episode 31 of Batman the Animated Series, The Cape and Cowl Conspiracy, a letter B ranking.
Really?
Yes.
I'd rate it a little lower, if I'm being honest. Like, it's at best okay, but nothing really too memorable. At best, I'd have to give it like a 7.5.
A 7.5? Okay, okay then. But I'm pretty sure that we'll have a lot more amazing and Aussie stuff to talk about this one because, my friends, we have another two-parter to talk about with you guys today. The two-parter, episodes 32 and 33 of Batman the Animated Series, Robin's Reckoning.
Ooh, this episode is an interesting one.
After, Dick Grayson's been out of this show for so gosh darn long, only appearing in less than 5 stories, it was about time that going into the second season, we finally learned about his backstory and how it was he became Robin in the first place. So we will do what we've done with the previous two-parters. We'll discuss part by part before moving on. Let us get into the plot summary of part 1, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
During a fight with some gangsters at a construction site, Batman and Robin learn the name of their boss, Billy Marin. While Robin looks forward to going up against Marin, Batman becomes distant. And after a falling out at the Batcave, Batman doesn't allow Robin to accompany him on the search for Marin. Robin investigates on the Bat computer and soon realizes that Billy Marin is not the boss's real name. It's an alias for Tony Zuko, the man who killed his parents years ago, which Batman already knew but chose not to tell Dick.
See, Batman, that's not how you do it.
No.
I mean, sure, withholding some information, I guess, but this... I guess in the moment, for Robin's safety, if Robin knew exactly right out of the gate, he'd be ticked and would want to go after him.
Exactly. Batman most likely did this in order to protect the boy that he's looked after since he was a young lad all those years ago.
Yeah.
The episode majorly features flashbacks to Dick's time at a Haley circus, correct?
That's right.
Including flashbacks that are way out of his original comic issue in 1940, which honestly, it really did seem like a nice family-friendly circus with your, everyday mob troubles.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, Dick's parents were murdered because, well, the mob offered to pay the money for protection, as they put it, but Dick's father turned them down.
Exactly.
And then at the show that night, there was an accident.
They were used as an example, see?
Yeah.
Basically, they attempted to strong-arm money out of the people working at the circus. They said no, and they killed Dick's parents.
Yeah, because he was part of the Flying Graysons, acrobats that are able to land without the safety of a net.
Yes.
But the trapeze snapped because of mob interference, and they literally fell to their deaths.
In order to protect Dick's life, Bruce offered to take him in as his young ward over maybe 10 years ago, I'd like to think. Yeah, basically showing Dick all of the ins and outs of, being a good person and teaching him to fight in martial arts. It really did show that he really took a liking to Dick Grayson.
I think the main reason is he saw himself up there.
Yes.
Because when he saw his parents die right in front of his eyes, it flashed back to that night in Crime Alley where he saw his parents gunned down. So he wanted to share that compassion to Dick and care for him because his parents weren't there.
Very much true. He knew that Dick's life was in danger. The fact of the matter is, the least that he could do was to help him along through it, because he's been through the exact same pain that Dick was all those years ago. Being a comforting friend and later father to him. But of course, one of the best moments of this first part was like the moment when Bruce was on his knee and Dick was feeling completely and utterly emotionally shattered, asking Bruce Wayne, It doesn't get easier, does it? No. No, it really is sad. Obviously, we're paraphrasing because it's been a while, but they got into that moment being very real with each other. Losing your loved ones is something that never fully goes away, but you do your best to compensate.
Exactly.
And you know what? Bruce did everything he humanly could to make Dick the son that he never had, and to be the father that Dick was robbed of all those years ago, which of course makes it us understand why Batman would lie to Dick in the present moment. He knows that going after Tony Zuko will like lead him down a vengeful path, one that he might never come back from. He wanted to protect him now as he did then. Of course, things didn't exactly go as planned.
Oh, no.
By the way, I'm not sure if it was the first part or the second part or both parts in general, but just like with Heart of Ice, this episode actually won an Emmy back in 1993 for Outstanding Animated Program for programming of less than 1 hour.
Interesting.
So yeah, this show is winning Emmys left and right. You guys would definitely take that into consideration when you show it to your youngins someday.
Oh, yeah.
So basically with all of that, with the first part mostly being Dick's backstory, showing his true relationship with Bruce Wayne, and showing that the rest of the story is going to be Dick on the vengeful path of catching his parents' killer, how would you rate the first half of Robin's Reckoning?
If I'm being honest, it's a good setup in establishing what Dick Grayson's backstory was like in this universe and how it followed most of the comic books. And then eventually going to the present day where he finds his parents' killer. It's going to be a rough part 2 with this eventual setup. So as good setup, I have to give the part 1 of Robin's Reckoning an 8 out of 10.
Really? Personally, with me, I would honestly have to say that Robin's Reckoning is one of the many amazing origin stories that Batman the Animated Series happens to do. You know, like the fact is that they go very deep into Dick's backstory. They do it very well in a very nice bit of presentation, showing us just how one bad day can truly shatter your life forever. But it also shows that even when things seem at their worst, it really does go to show that you can be lifted up from your most worst of times. You can be shown a brighter future that will put you back on the right path if you are willing to embrace the change. And that's exactly what Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson have done after all these years, showing once and for all that good can always come out of the worst possible situations.
Oh, yeah.
So I would happily give the first half of the Robin's Reckoning two-parter an A-letter ranking.
Really?
Honestly, one of the best superhero animated backstories of all time, not without a shadow of a doubt. And I will say this, part 2 is also great, but we'll get to that once we talk about it in a single moment. Let us get into Robin's Reckoning, part 2. Angered by Batman's deceit, Robin sets out to find Tony Zuko on his own, all the while plagued by the memories of his parents' death and how Bruce took him in as his own son. Eventually, Batman manages to find Zuko at an old amusement park, but breaks his leg during the fight. Robin finally arrives and prepares to kill Zuko in vengeance, but he doesn't. Ultimately, Robin takes Batman and Bruce's words to heart. Revenge is good in the moment, but taking a life is something that will forever change who you are, and there is no going back.
Yeah, honestly, this second part, it shows that vengeance can really cloud your judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention revenge. I mean, Batman said it himself in an animated movie once. You have to keep your center. You can't fight crime by becoming a criminal.
Exactly. You know, like the fact of the matter is, Dick's mind is just so flooded with memories of things long since past, the trauma that he endured as a young lad. It's so clearly something that even though he slides away with jokes, because mind you, he's been a very cheerful person in the series so far.
Yeah.
It shows that unlike Bruce, who carries the trauma on his shoulders, Dick buries it deep down inside. He just learns to deal with it in healthier ways than Bruce does. But when the trauma comes forth, nothing good ever happens.
That's true.
And then of course, we see the flashbacks of Dick going back to hunt down Zuko himself so many years ago during Batman's earliest days. And then, of course, is this the moment when we find out that Dick finds out that Bruce is Batman?
Yes.
Yeah. That's exactly when the cat's out of the bag. There is no going back, and he subsequently. The flashbacks show that Bruce made Dick his partner in crime, a life that would be able to give him the excitement, the ability to heal, given time and given proper mentorship. And no, of course, even though the synopsis does go a very bit vague on the ending, no, even though Dick has every opportunity to kill the man who ruined his life, in that very last moment, he opts to be the better man and wishes to see Tony Zuko rot in a cell rather than put him in the ground. Or, of course, in the ocean because they're at the amusement park.
Yeah.
But then, of course, it really does show in one of Bruce Wayne's best moments at the end in the Batman costume. He lied to he lied to Tim because he knew that it would be too personal. He might do something he might regret. He apologizes for lying because he didn't want to lose him too.
That's
because
right.
He loves Dick so gosh darn much. The son he always wanted but probably would never have until much later, of course.
Yeah.
But then, of course, we'll get to that at a later date. The point is, these two have a bond that transcends the comic book industry itself. A story that is as old and wise as the Greek and Roman myths. Batman and Robin, the dynamic duo. Even through their harshest of times, they will always find a way back to one another. And that's just what this story does so gosh darn well. It shows us that Dick can handle his own as a character, but that when the time comes, he can always lean on Bruce as a friend, a partner, and a father.
Absolutely. Yeah, this really is, honestly, an interesting character study mainly for Dick. Because after all that, it also kind of reminds me of this Batman story where Batman does eventually find out his parents' killer and wants to kill him there and there. But he doesn't because he knows that he will be no better than the bad guys if he killed Joe Chill right then and there.
Exactly. So basically, given that, obviously we didn't go too in depth with the second part, but then again, the first half is pretty much where the bulk of the story is.
Absolutely. That's mainly the main gist of most of these two-parters for the show.
Yeah, because the front parts are always front-loaded, and then the second ones are always the consequences of the choices made.
Exactly.
How would you put the second part if you would have to put it into words?
Considering the fact that it was more in-depth than part one, it's a little better. But if I'm being honest, I find it just as good as part one because it has enough highs and lows to balance it along with the first part. So, and if I'm jumping the gun here a bit, if I had to rate it, it'd probably be the same. I'd probably give it also an 8 out of 10.
Dang, really?
Yeah.
Me, I do think that part 2 is slightly lesser than part 1, mostly because part 1 was so strong in its presentation. It was very much a hard act to follow, but that didn't stop them from trying. They continued the presentation of the black and white flashbacks of Bruce and Dick's youth, showing that they have a very fun-loving but also professional relationship as, billionaire and ward, all that stuff right there.
Yeah.
I would honestly say that I really do wish that there were more stories with Bruce and Dick like this in the earlier seasons before they transitioned their stuff to other Batman superheroes. But you know what? If you guys had to ask me what is one of your favorite stories with Dick Grayson animated only, I would recommend this two-parter in a heartbeat. So not as good as part 1, but still very wholesome, and I would watch it any day of the week.
Yeah.
So I'd have to give Robin's Reckoning Part 2 a letter B+ ranking.
All right.
Not as good as the A, but still good enough to watch.
Sounds good to me.
But of course, even though we gushed a lot about Mr. Dick Grayson in Robin's Reckoning, this episode is of course another laugh out loud story. The teaming up of Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, episode 34, The Laughing Fish.
Which, fun fact, is actually based on another comic book story, right?
Yes, it is. This episode is based on 3 separate Batman comic stories, all shoved in, all blended together. The Joker's 5-way revenge from Batman 251 back in 1973 by Denny O'Neil and art by Neil Adams, followed by The Laughing Fish and Sign of the Joker from Detective Comics 475 and 476 from 1978. So basically, they blended the 3 stories together into a 22-minute story that seemingly took the world by storm. I should also mention that we haven't really been talking about the title cards of the series, mind you. This is actually one of the only, I think it is, if not the only episode that's not from season 4 that has no title card. It just has the title in white letters, and then it goes through the opening credits, and then we skim right into the story.
Yeah.
And like, you know what? Even though I can only assume that's because, the episode was running behind on schedule and they had to get it out in the presentation it was in. But you know what? It all the more works to separate the amazing-osity of it. It makes it more original, iconic, inclusive, all of that. So, let us get into the plot synopsis of episode 34 of Batman the Animated Series, The Laughing Fish. The Joker creates a toxin that affects only fish, mutating them into Joker fish, with white faces, red lips, and dead eyes. Then, he targets innocent men who refuse to copyright his Joker fish. That's it. He tries to get a copyright on a frickin' fish.
Well, since fish are a natural resource, I guess it doesn't count. But that's a stupid law.
No, exactly. You cannot own something that's living. That would be slavery.
That is true, yeah. But it's an animal, not a person.
Yeah, I suppose so. The Joker also captures Harvey Bullock, and Batman must rescue him and foil the Crown Prince of Crime's criminal scheme once again.
This episode is nuts.
Is unlike any other, folks. Let me tell you this. The Joker has done whacked out schemes before, trying to kill all of Gotham on April Fool's Day, kidnapping the mayor's son, running a murderous Christmas holiday special that we've all talked about previously. But this is just surreal.
It's surreal, it's weird, and it's so cool.
It's drop dead hilarious funny. If I would have to clarify something, if Harley's first episode was not where Mark Hamill had solidified his Joker personality, this episode was definitely it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely going forward with his very upfront, very businessman-like attitude, hiding behind his murderous and psychotic intentions. When they tell him that he cannot earn money, he cannot own the copyright to something that is living, a fish, it seems like a foolproof plan, and they immediately reject him, and he gets so incredibly angry about it.
He wants that attention. That's why.
That's exactly because he's a freaking narcissist. He'll go so far as to paint his picture across the entire world to be noticed. Look at me, world! Look at me!
Yeah, I know. And one standout moment from this episode that I just love is the little joke where Harley says she hates fish. Who wasn't alone on that?
Yeah.
And then Joker's like, poor Harley, exposed to so much all day. But cheer up, you can be my very own little mermaid. Woo! And then he puts the fish head over it as an inverse, and I'm laughing because it's too funny. And Harley's like, you're really sick, that boss?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dang.
I absolutely adore that.
My God.
I know that Arlene Sorkin doesn't really do Harley's voice anymore, but if given the chance, I would love to have them reenact that scene one day. It's honestly a very hilarious moment. The episode mixes in a lot of murderous intent with amazingly funny comedy, and it does it so gosh darn well. That's what happens when Bruce and Paul work together on Batman episodes.
Yeah.
Something good always basically comes out of it.
Yeah.
I think that I'll have to say that one of my favorite moments was when Batman and the police are protecting the guy who refused to give Joker the copyrights to fish. And he said, oh, don't worry, the Joker's girlfriend just sprayed me with something. Get this man to a hospital right now! I absolutely adore that.
They're that paranoid.
If the Joker does anything to you, get help right now.
Whether a weird injection, a weird drink, possibly a weird present, get out of there.
Even if this man drops a breadcrumb on your door, the whole block is going to be set on fire. Get help right now. Call your mother, call your grandmother, call your aunt from another country you didn't know you had.
What?
This man is really out to get you. And it's so funny all the way through. Even though this is a really serious situation, you have no alternative but to laugh. And I absolutely adore that so much. Even when we get to the end of the episode, when as we said, Bullock gets kidnapped by the Joker and Harley as used to bait to kill Batman. Then of course there's an amazing fight inside of a shark tank, and it's so freaking great all the way through. But then of course you can't say that this episode kind of begins the trend of something that would follow the Joker for the rest of Batman the Animated Series.
I was going to mention it myself, but you do it.
The fake out deaths. basically every so often in Joker-centered episodes, he would be thrust into a situation where it looks like he perished, but he would eventually be back for another day. This one, he jumps into the ocean to escape Batman after he's freed Bullock. He gets surrounded by sharks and then disappears into the ocean. It's very funny afterwards with Harley crying and crying. Harvey Bullock basically saying how he was a psychopathic narcissist, and she said she's gonna miss him so much.
I'm like, man, is this girl really that desperate?
Yeah, girl, you have issues. I'm very sorry. Thankfully, don't worry, girl. Just wait a couple more decades. Everything will be fine. But then of course they have the ominous cliffhanger of the thought of, will we ever see the Joker again? You know we will.
Oh, yeah, because this is comic books, people.
Yeah, so all things...
this happened in comics, too, when you think about it.
Multiple times, yeah. It's how you keep the reader engaged. You think, oh, is he ever going to come back? Use your best assets as little as possible, and they'll always come back for more of it. It's pigeons with breadcrumbs. The little you throw, the more they'll want. Basically, after us gushing and laughing about this one, is honestly one of Joker's best episodes of the entire series, with the very silly concept, the very outlandishly funny humor for not only a kid's show, but for any adult, period. How would you rank The Laughing Fish?
Honestly, this episode it's like all you said. It's funny, it's hilarious, it's great. It's honestly one of Joker's best episodes. Like, if I had to put it bluntly, like, I watch it again and again and laugh, no problem.
No problem.
So, at best, I have to give this episode around an 8.5 out of 10.
Dang, very strong rating, my friend. Me, I'm always a fan of Arlene and Mark always teaming up for Joker and Harley villain episodes, and this one is no different. Whoever thought of the idea of the Joker fighting for copyrighted fish deserves an award.
Yeah, who would have thought of that?
And the very unpredictable moments of like this episode, the weird camera angles, the very intense fight scenes, it all works together in tandem to create something masterful and hilariously drop dead. If you guys want to show your kids some very beginning Batman and Joker material, please go check out this episode.
Oh yeah.
So at long last, I'll give episode 34 of Batman the Animated Series, The Laughing Fish, a letter B+, letter grade.
Alright, nice.
Alright, and now we'll be going into a few more lesser episodes before we end tonight's session with another two-parter. But of course, let us now start talking about episode 35 of Batman the Animated Series, Night of the Ninja. That's right. A mysterious ninja is robbing Wayne Enterprises' subsidiaries, and Batman discovers that the ninja is actually his equal in combat. A grudge match between Bruce Wayne and his skills to match him can only mean one person, Kyodai Ken. Yeah, Kyodai Ken, that's correct. An old rival of Wayne's teacher from his days in Japan, and who was thrown out of the dojo after attempting to rob it, only to be stopped by Bruce Wayne. Ken, it turns out, wants revenge, naturally.
What is this episode?
Yeah, you know what, guys? As much as I appreciate Batman being literally the best at everything, whether it be escaping, combat, intelligence, the stories revolving around those, minus the League of Assassins, aren't really that interesting to me.
Yeah, it's just... This was kind of run-of-the-mill, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, you know me, though. I love anything straight out of Japan. Like, the fact of the matter is, I love sword fighting. I love, those weird fast movements. The entirety of the Japanese culture means very much to me. But you know what? This episode was decent enough as is. The fact of the matter is, I did enjoy it, even though it wasn't all that extravagant. A guy who Bruce Wayne ruined his life wants to kill him. That seems to happen a lot. Bruce Wayne, in his attempts to be one of the best human beings on the planet, makes enemies of 99% of the planet.
Yeah, how does that happen?
I don't know, man. It just goes.
I'll say this. I'll give the episode this. We got to see more Bruce's backstory and how he trained to become Batman.
Oh yeah,
and the fact that during this episode he gets to show off his skills of being a freaking ninja, that's great.
I mean,
everything else though.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine. I guess the fact of the matter is, it's basically run of the mill. Bruce Wayne catches this guy stealing either a sword or something of the sort, gets him thrown out of the academy and shamed and all that, and now he wants to ruin him. Thing about it is, though, I can't remember if this guy knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman.
I don't think so.
Until like a future storyline. We see this episode is mostly there to set up how Bruce became Batman, how he became so good in combat, even though he looks like he's never fought a fight in his entire life. Because the fact of the matter is, it was decent storytelling backstories and whatnot, fighting and everything. If you were call me crazy, but doesn't this episode end with Batman saving Summer Gleason from the ninja?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that's what this thing was. He kidnaps Summer Gleason, the reporter. I'm sorry, we don't talk about her. The show keeps forgetting that she exists, and because he has to go through all this convoluted nonsense about putting up the facade of being Bruce Wayne, but also saving her as Batman, and then he throws him out of a window, and then he swims away to come back another day. I mean, it was it's always nice to see Japanese culture represented decently to good in kids animation, especially in the pre-21st century.
Absolutely.
But this one was nothing groundbreaking.
No, nothing really new. Honestly, it feels like something out of an American Japanese movie.
Exactly, kind of like something that Jackie Chan would have been in the 90s, or maybe not Jet Li, though. He's more Chinese.
That's true, yeah.
So basically, we gave you guys the run-of-the-mill plot. Batman basically has to fight an evil element from his past while also keeping his secret identity, while also fighting off someone who has a very big vendetta against him, but somehow still coming up on top. We will come back on this story in a later installment, but for right now, we simply wanted to lay down the foundations for you. If you had to basically give your run-of-the-mill, same with the episode, reception on it, how would you do it?
Honestly, I feel like this could have been a lot better. It's there, but it just didn't go all the way for me.
Exactly. You felt like you could have had a bit more. Maybe a little less backstory, a little more cool fighting action.
No, keep the backstory, but just maybe more action. That's the main thing.
Got you. You felt like there was too much talking.
Sometimes, yeah.
Then again, no, because then you really haven't seen Japanese movie, because boy, do they like to talk in those.
That also goes for anime, too.
Very, very,
but I'm willing to accept that. But
exactly.
At best, I have to give this episode around a 7 out of 10.
A 7? Damn, man. I must have liked it a lot more than you did, because even though, yes, essentially not a very whole lot happened in this, very much run-of-the-mill stuff. It was mostly there to establish Bruce's backstory about learning his fighting techniques from some of the best teachers in Japan, having to fight down a rival, save a nice reporter lady, and still come out on top, but still with the threat of this ninja dude, Kyudai Ken, coming back to get his revenge at a later date. And trust me, we will get to that later on. So, if I'm being honest, a decent story, a decent plot, a decent everything, but nothing groundbreaking in general. So, I would have to very hesitantly give episode 35 of Batman the Animated Series, Night of the Ninja, a B letter ranking.
Really?
Yes, a solid B, but just barely.
All right.
Barely qualifying it for that ranking. We have 4 more episodes to talk about tonight, my friends. I know that you'd probably like to see more, but simply hold on to your tailpipes. We'll get to them eventually.
Yeah.
Next up is a follow-up to a previous storyline with a very feisty female feline villainess.
Oh, yeah.
Episode 36, Cat Scratch Fever.
That's what we got.
Batman must stop Roland Daggett's plan to release a viral plague designed by Professor Milo into Gotham by way of its stray cat population. The case gains new urgency when Catwoman becomes infected with the virus during her search for her missing cat Isis. Now, Batman must find an antidote to save the woman he loves most.
Aw. But a viral outbreak? Not
No,
familiar.
I'm pretty sure that's basically not the same, though.
No, probably not. But this episode is interesting, because it sort of opens up more about Batman and Catwoman's relationship, specifically in this show, alternate reality aside.
Yes, indeed.
But, like, it's alright. Like, Roland Daggett as the main villain makes sense because he is the kind of jerk that would want to do that considering, he wants power.
Exactly. Roman Osborn needed to be reminded of his existence in this series.
Osborn?
Because I made the joke with his red hair and
oh, yeah.
He literally looks like Norman Osborn from the comics.
A little bit,
But of course, this episode was also the first appearance of Professor Milo, a very, very, very minor Batman villain who we will only talk about 2 more times in the entirety of Behind the Screens because he matters that little.
God.
But of course, this is probably one of the best times that we see him. He's
probably
basically the kind of mad scientist who would do anything for a quick buck.
I'm a mad scientist, but I work cheap.
Yeah, that's exactly it. He's a cheap mad scientist knockoff villain. How convoluted is this frickin' plan?
Very.
Let me tell you that. This whole plan banks on there being 10,000 stray cats running throughout all of Gotham City. You infect one, somebody touches it, they also get infected, and then then of course the end goal is fine. Roland Daggett wants to make a quick buck by synthesizing an antidote to a plague that he creates. If he infects the cats with it, he will have no involvement because they're strays.
Right.
But of course, Catwoman, being the lovable scamp that she is, when her cat gets infected, she gets infected. Batman has to step in and do something
because he would do that for his woman.
Exactly. I probably should also try to resource my memory here. Is this also the episode when Catwoman went before the court and they said that she had to stop being Catwoman, otherwise she'd go to federal prison?
It's either this one or the next one she appears in. You're close.
Yeah, this was around the time in the Batman series storyline where Catwoman was told to reform or she will go to the big house. Of course, which she tries to live the life of an ordinary citizen, even though of course she always seems to get plucked back into things. When she goes back to get Isis, she is encountered by those who see the strays as nothing but vermin that need to be snapped out, or they're very much used for their villainous schemes. When it's revealed to Bruce that Selina is going to die from this plague, he goes above and beyond to get the cure back for her, even against a very nice snowward bound drop setting. It's very rarely that we get to see snow in Gotham City. It's either dark, cold night skies or very sunny morning skies.
Yeah.
Hardly ever do we get to see snow, and every time we do it, it's always a fun time.
Yeah. I'm glad that Batman is able to go above and beyond for a woman that he could potentially love? I don't know.
Yeah, basically it's I kind of see this as him just, being a good person with the possibility of her still wanting to reform when all things are done. But then again, we know the ways of superhero stories. The hero never gets a happy ending until everybody thinks he should have one.
Yeah. Besides, Batman and Catwoman's relationship is a very big will they, won't they, when you think about it.
Oh my god, you have no frickin' idea. Even going back as far as the 60s, possibly even the 50s. It just keeps going on and on and on. Who knows? They might finally be married by the time we're 80 years old and we'll be on episode 1000 of this podcast.
I don't know.
Oh my god.
That far, but overall, this is a good episode.
Yeah, Batman gets the cure for the plague. He saves Catwoman, but ultimately some shenanigans, still, keep them from being together. But at the very least, he was able to save her cat and make her happy.
Yeah,
that's all that matters.
If you're able to do something nice for the woman you love that makes them happy, that's all that matters.
One other thing before we get to the ending things too. The other guys helping Roland Daggett, the henchman types, didn't they remind you of the villains from Home Alone?
Yes,
almost?
they're idiots.
They're so stupid. They follow Batman onto a lake of ice and shoot at it while they're still on the lake of ice.
Yeah.
It's just so silly. It's oh my god, these guys are straight out of Home Alone. These the people making the show saw Home Alone 2, actually thought it was a good movie.
Come on, it's not that bad.
It was. But of course, we'll get to that at a later date. So basically, this episode was okay-ish, good at best, but of course it wouldn't be considered one of my favorite Catwoman stories.
Yeah, me neither.
So decent plot, decently fun time, but seriously could have been a lot better in most regards. How would you rate Cat Scratch Fever?
If I'm being honest, yeah, decent is the right word to describe it.
Yeah.
But it's nothing too amazing, but nothing too horrible either. It's an alright story But I feel like if it could have been done a little bit better, and the plan could have been a little less convoluted.
Indeed.
Other than that, I have to rate it at best 7.5 out of 10.
Honestly, I'm thinking in the same ballpark as well. The fact of the matter is, as much as I love to see Batman and Catwoman together, I really wish we could have gotten a story that would make them even more intimate than they were in the previous story, the Cat and the Claw, correct?
Yep.
Basically, it's it was a very decent way to reintroduce Roland Daggett into the new season, show that he's still a threat, but his plans are really damn weird.
Yeah.
And basically, let's just infect us. If we just infect a stray animal that nobody will miss, we will kill a whole city and then cure it after they give us all their money. This guy is such a character of big business, it hurts so bad. Subtlety, thy name is not Roland Daggett. Mm-hmm. Oh my god. So basically, I'd have to give Cat Scratch Fever a letter ranking of C+.
Oof.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, definitely could have been a bit better, but not the worst thing this show will ever see, as we'll get to this. Because remember, folks, we're almost at 40 episodes into this over 100 episode series. We have not talked about very badly stories except for Batman in My Basement. Trust me, there is at least a handful of other bad times that we'll have to rant about, but those will be for future times, my friends. We have 3 more to go tonight. Strap in, folks, as we get into episode 37 of Batman the Animated Series, The Strange Secret of Bruce Wayne.
This one is interesting.
After a prominent judge is injured during a struggle with some thugs, demanding money from her in exchange for a strange videotape, Bruce Wayne decides to take a trip to Yucca Springs, a resort where the judge had vacationed earlier that year, and consulted by Dr. Hugo Strange, a psychiatrist, or a psycho-arist. Never mind. That was terrible. I apologize.
Yeah, I can hear all the pun fans shout out, "Shut up!"
I agree. I will simply keep reading. Bruce soon learns that Strange has invented a machine that extracts people's darkest secrets from their minds and transfers them into videotape form. And now, Strange has proof of Bruce's secret identity as Batman and plans to auction it to the 3 most dangerous crime villains in Gotham City: the Joker, Two-Face, and the Penguin. And of course, Batman must find a way to keep his secret identity, well, a secret, and also stop Dr. Hugo Strange.
Yeah, so this is the first episode appearing with the crazed professor, and this guy, Hugo Strange, is a very, very interesting character.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure most modern fans would remember him from the incredibly amazing popular video game Batman Arkham City, where he was played by Bradley Baker, right?
No, actually, Corey Burton, who voiced Count Dooku in the Star Wars Clone Wars show.
That's actually true, because he sounded so much like Count Dooku in that. But of course, he sounded so silly in this. He was like a little hunchback, little tubby guy with a bald head.
But you wanted to do something. I'm thinking to myself, it's like if Igor took the Frankenstein legacy and went in a different direction.
Exactly. It's like if you combined Frankenstein and Igor together, and then something very silly would come out of it.
Yeah, and Hugo Strange is one of the first villains to find out that Bruce is Batman, and using this episode to extract his version of Batman and doling it out to 3 arch criminals, one of them being Batman's arch nemesis, oh boy.
It's really, honestly strange, but honestly really good as well.
Yeah.
The beginning story of the struggle between the judge and the cop shows that something really bad is going on in Gotham. It really does show just how seedy and corrupt the city is when nobody is looking.
Yeah.
If people are that desperate to hide their dirty laundry in this godforsaken, cracked, shattered city, it really shows that as good of a job as Batman's doing, he's barely doing it good enough.
Some would say to push for him to do better, but, that's how it is. But, honestly, the episode is alright, but it really picks up around the 3rd act. Everything really sets into action. Joker, Penguin, and Two-Face arrive, and they go to the auction, and then the banter between the 3 of them is, the best part of the episode.
Fantastic.
When Joker enters, Two-Face is like, "Get out of my face, clown." Which one? I was laughing. I'm like, yes, that works.
It's so freaking sweet. I mean, I know I know that Mark Hamill probably didn't ad-lib as much as other actors on the series, but it really does sound like he did.
I feel like he did.
It really had a really fantastic time. Even when they throw all their money on the table, $51,240,765 and 53 cents.
I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money.
You guys are rich. Why are you guys still on this show? Oh my god. But you know what? It's such an entertaining time. Even though Strange is a very bare bones golden age villain, he has very simple motivations. He basically knows Batman's secret identity, but nobody believes him, so he tries to prove himself right. And in the end, crazy shenanigans happen. Batman manages to smash the memory extracting machine, making the fact that Bruce Wayne's tape is the last piece of gold he has left. But of course, Batman messes with that too, causing it instead to be a confession of him trying to gyp the criminals out of it.
That was hilarious.
A fake memory, and as soon as he does that, they immediately turn on him.
Yeah, Penguin, Elizabeth Turner's Penguin was like, we've been gypped!
Yeah,
get him!
They just immediately jump on him, and in an ordinary average episode, it would only end with them beating him up. But no, it actually insinuates a chase scene out of the frickin' spa, which it's actually a very pretty spa.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I would
but
totally
seriously,
love to go
the final chase is just one of the best.
I know, Hugo Strange is driving away, all the other villains are driving after him, Batman and Alfred close behind. It's just an all-out chase to the frickin' airport. All of course, before they catch Strange, they hijack the plane, they get the plane in the air, and then they start throwing and doing flips and punching, and everything happens before they manage to get the plane back down. This is just so extra. But
yes.
You know what? This guy definitely deserved all
of
it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Playing with people's memories is never a good thing.
No, do not do that. Do not do that.
People's private property. And trust me, folks, if we ever get around to talking about other shows with other stories, I will have more to say on the matter. But of course, for right now, the way that he manages to trick Strange out of all this. Strange still knows that Bruce is Batman. He can't keep the secret forever until Batman comes out from behind the camera, and all of a sudden he's like, wait, impossible! You tricked me!
What?
And of course he's sent kicking and screaming to the loony bin, and then it's revealed, wasn't it Dick in the Batman suit? That's absolutely hilarious about how they managed to undo the impossible once again.
Yeah.
It really just shows that even when, once again, as we talked about earlier in tonight's segment, even when things seem impossible and nearly not possible to be fixed, Batman finds a way around it. The most looniest of ways, but he always does.
Yeah. Honestly, if I had to rate this episode, it honestly really got good again around the third act. But most of the episode is still a solid episode to watch because we get to see Hugo Strange. We get to see him possibly ruin Batman's career. So at best, it's a solid story for him, and really is another testament to see how Batman really kicks his butt. So at best, I have to give it an 8.
An 8?
Yeah.
Ooh, boy. I would, definitely say that even though Hugo Strange is one of my favorite Batman villains, in theory, I don't consider him one of the major 17 villains.
No.
But of course, when I was 11 years old, and when I first played Batman Arkham City, basically seeing Hugo Strange look at me with Corey Burton's deep, mysterious
Christopher Lee voice.
Yeah, Christopher Lee voice. I was blown away. I thought that I had known every single one of Batman's rogues gallery by the time I was 11, but boy, did I not know how much I still needed to learn. This guy was really something else, and given the right atmosphere, the right environment, Hugo Strange really flaws as a masterful Batman villain. And this episode is no different. Using outlandishly silly technology to extract people's memories, make them do whatever you want. It honestly holds more power over you than any money could. Money may talk, but memories talk more.
Yep.
And but of course, given all the loony action in the episode, the big chase scene at the end, the hilarious moments between the villains, Batman and Alfred's amazing chemistry as always. This episode was just amazing, folks. So I would have to give The Strange Secret of Bruce Wayne a solid B+ letter rating.
All right, a B+, not bad.
Okay, and at long last, my friends, we've gotten to yet another two-parter, which we will close out this story with. But before we do that, one more fact about the strange secret of Bruce Wayne. It's actually adapted from several comic stories.
That's right. I think I remember it was one Golden Age story where Strange held an auction.
Actually, it was taken from the late 70s. Actually, it was taken. This story was based from Detective Comics number 471 and 472 from 1977.
Gotcha.
Not to mention Strange's plan in this episode was very similarly used in the plot of the movie Batman Forever, taking apart Bruce's memory and the Riddler and Two-Face finding out that Bruce Wayne is Batman.
Odd.
Yeah, I know, right? Seems like a very weird thing that the people making that movie would take from, especially considering where not only the movies but the show would later go.
Yeah.
But of course, now, enough about that, folks. We must talk about our final 2 episodes of the night, episodes 38 and 39, Heart of Steel, parts 1 and 2.
This two-parter is interesting.
Very interesting, but also very nah. We'll talk about that when we can. Several robberies take place at major companies, including Wayne Enterprises, and Bruce Wayne, as Batman, discovers the thief to be a mechanical briefcase. You heard right, folks. A robot that looks like a briefcase is stealing company secrets. That's really awesome. Like, I'm not
Yeah, but
lie
also,
right there.
what?
Bruce meets with his old friend Carl Rosum, I believe that's how you say the name of it, an expert in robotics who lost his daughter to a vehicle accident many years ago. He also meets Rosum's assistant, Randa Duane, I believe that's how you say her name. Yeah. And Rosum's ultimate creation, a prototype AI known as Holographic Analytic Reciprocating Digital Computer, also known as HARDAC. Bruce invites Duane to dinner, and around the same time, certain civilians start acting strangely for some reason. Most surprisingly is when Duane unexpectedly leaves Wayne Manor while Bruce is on the phone, and the entire Batcave turns on Batman before the credits roll on the first part. Now, this story begins pretty averagely, I'm not going to lie, because, it starts out really amazing. A briefcase that's walking on its own? That's awesome.
I mean, but then you find out what's behind it, and you're like, oh.
Really? All that big setup for this? I mean, I don't want you guys to be understanding. This is not a bad story.
No.
I'm just saying that the way that they do things may have been cool many years ago, but like, of course, in the wake of the 2020s, this stuff has kind of been overplayed and done. You meet yet another one of Bruce Wayne's old friends who runs a robotics company. You learn that his daughter died in a tragic accident. His assistant looks a lot like his daughter, possibly, and of course you see this big, giant, imposing Jack Kirby-like monstrosity named HARDAC that's talking. Now, if you guys have seen 2001, a Space Odyssey, you know that AIs are never a good idea.
Yeah, that, HARDAC, what other AI went bad?
AI intelligence, artificial intelligence maybe, iRobot, the Terminator possibly. Ultron, most definitely. But then, of course,
again, HARDAC is an original creation for the show. And
not the best one, honestly. Nope. This show has had a really interesting way of introducing original villains. Sometimes they stick around for decades, and sometimes they just get forgotten.
Yeah, and HARDAC was one of them.
Indeed, even though it was a very interesting concept. Have people start acting strangely as soon as this guy is introduced. A guy who makes robot duplicates of people sometimes. That the fact that the AI is doing things that it's not programmed to do. Yeah. I mean, the fact of the matter is, Bruce Wayne takes one look at that, this dude's assistant, and is like, I need to take her out to dinner. I don't know why. I just need to. And he does that. He brings this strange woman that he's only just met into his business and maybe his house as well. It's like, Bruce, you are smarter than this. Do a background check on this woman before you
come on,
places. Man. But then, of course, he brings her to his place. She finds out that he's Batman, goes into the Batcave and starts wrecking everything up. It really goes to show that there's a conspiracy at work here, something that will probably be very scary once we get to the second half of this story.
Yeah.
So basically, this is a very average robot against human human storyline that just so happens to have Batman in it.
Yeah, very run-of-the-mill.
Yeah.
And how I would rate it, it's honestly, it could have been a lot better. Look, the briefcase was so what the F.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was just at best okay. At best, I had to give it like a 7.
A 7? Damn. Me, I really thought that it was average enough. Like, I was able to keep my attention through the entirety of the first half enough, just so much that I could see its flaws later on in other viewings. Honestly, ladies and gentlemen, any story involving robots, AI, it's something that Hollywood has gone and done again and again, and this story is no different. Even if it does have Batman in it, for real, I would have to give the first part of Heart of Steel a letter B ranking.
Okay.
But then again, this is only the first half of the story. We have to get to our last episode segment of the night, the second part of Heart of Steel. Batman manages to free himself from the Batcave's clutches and brings it back under control, although he fails to track down Randa after he goes back upstairs and sees that she's gone. This is the very first episode, though, my friends, of hit DC character and eventual superheroine Barbara Gordon.
Oh, yeah!
She approaches Batman to inform him of her father's sudden change in behavior. She was actually introduced in the first part, and she was interesting there too, but of course we'll get to talking more about her once the plot synopsis of the second part is over. She says that her father has had a very erratic behavior modification. A brutal fight between Batman and Detective Bullock breaks out, during which Batman pushes Bullock into the bat signal, electrocuting him. But it also reveals to him that he's actually an android. The real Bullock and the real Commissioner Gordon have gone missing. And Batman knows who the culprit is. It was Hardak the whole time.
What?
I didn't know that.
Well, I mean considering...
It was pretty
yeah.
obvious. Batman must stop the evil supercomputer before he replaces all of humanity with seemingly perfect robot duplicates.
What kind of plot is that?
I know, it's really silly when you say it out loud. It's different when you sit down and watch it with friends, with soda and snacks. That's just a really silly idea.
Yes!
Scary to maybe young kids, but to veteran watchers, it's not really all that interesting.
No, it feels like something done before.
Done before and over again. Basically, they do a decent job of replacing the people with robots.
Yeah.
And Batman actually has a really awesome fight with the robot duplicates at the end of the episode while he's working to save everybody, and ultimately destroys Hardak and the facility once and for all. Hopefully, this dude, Carl Rosum, when we see him again in the series, because remember, we will, let's hope, dear viewers, that he will learn not to build massive supercomputers in the wake of your daughter's death.
I don't think he will.
No, but honestly, despite all of the very cliched things that are going on in this story, robot duplicates, evil AI that think that humanity is bad, Batman being as good of a detective as always, let's talk about Barbara Gordon.
She is an amazing character.
I know. Basically, everybody here would know that Barbara Gordon will eventually become the superheroine Batgirl, the heroine Oracle, so many different ideas. She's basically been engraved into the Batman mythos ever since she was first created in the late 1960s.
Yeah, especially her making her mark in the 60s Batman show with Adam West.
Indeed. Yvonne Craig started it all as the first non-comic book portrayal of her, and she did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, then the rest followed, and they were just as good for Barbara as Batgirl.
Even Alicia Silverstone.
Oh, dear God. That's a whole other discussion.
Oh, trust me, I can't wait to gush about that eventually. But you know what? Barbara here is shown to be competent, compassionate, caring, another C word that I can't think of right now.
Probably not that C word, but
No.
But she is that, because that's kind of how she is in the comics.
Exactly. She's shown not to be both beautiful and kind of caring, but very intelligent and very quick on her feet. But is it funny that I love the scenes when she holds her Woogie teddy bear?
It is kind of cute.
That is fantastically adorable and funny. The fact that she's clearly in late high school, maybe early college, and she still talks to a stuffed animal. That's honestly so adorably hilarious. And it really is really awesome to like see, just like daughter like father. She goes right up to Batman, flips the frickin' signal, gets his attention, and wants to help, even though she has very few training. She's not scared. She's not terrified like most other people would be. She throws herself right into danger for the people she cares about. Especially her father.
Oh,
She
absolutely,
loves him
yes.
and admires him so gosh darn much and would do anything to keep him safe.
Yeah.
And of course, that becomes later even more apparent in the future stories.
Yeah.
So basically, despite this story being very average and played out, I'd have to say the inclusion of Barbara Gordon for future stories definitely made Heart of Steel worth it.
Yes, honestly, part 2, because of Barbara alone, it made it just as good as part 1.
Exactly.
But that still means I have to give it a low rating of about 7 out of 10.
Again, okay. But, like, what'd you think of it? Isn't this also the story where Batman chases the crazy robot assistant? Because remember, Randa was revealed to be a robot as well.
Oh, yeah.
Working for Hardak instead of the man, Carl.
Yep.
But basically, doesn't Batman go on a glider, too?
Something like that, yeah.
Flying over her. It's like, that is so silly. I absolutely love it. And so easily he's taken down by it for basically cheap thrills and all that.
Yeah.
So basically, yeah, this two-parter was very average for all things considered. After coming off so many very strong Batman stories about, sanity and insanity, dark and light, black and white, we had to get something average every once in a while. So
Yeah.
very much the same as part 1 of Heart of Steel. I'll give part 2 a B letter ranking as well.
Well, that's one way to end this episode.
Indeed it was, Chris. We have still so many more stories of Batman the Animated Series to discuss with in the future, and I can't wait to share all of them with our dear viewers. Not to mention the other future stories, the side stories, the continuations of Batman the Animated Series. The world of DC has not even begun to be shared with our audience here at Behind the Screens, and I can't wait for that.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, would you say that this is the end of tonight's session?
Yeah, I'd say that, but I mean, we've got more stuff on the way, but you'll just have to tune in to see. Until then, I'm Chris.
I'm Mike.
And this has been Behind the Screens. Everyone's have a good night, and please take care of yourselves.
Adios, television watchers.